Good morning, vinyl community. It's Monday morning. Looks like a beautiful day, so I thought I'd come out here. I had a really nice weekend. A friend and I went up to the annual Bowling Green Toledo football game, and it was in Toledo this year. It was a typical MAC game, very high scoring. I think it was 54 to 38 or something like that. The Toledo Rockets won. Damn it. Oh well. Good weekend. Today I'm going to show a bunch of albums. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on each one, but I have several. So I don't know how long this is going to take. These albums are from the what you would call the new wave era. I'm talking probably 78 to, these are 78 till 81 or 82. I was into a lot of new wave bands back in the days, back in the day. So I'll go through them. First one, Kings of the Wild Frontier. Adam and the Ants. I haven't listened to this in a long time. Dog Eat Dog, Ant Music are probably the big ones. I don't know why I got this album. I'm not a true fan. It's kind of weird. But next album, 1980, You Have to Have The Police, Zenyatta Mondatta. This is a very good, very good Police album. Favorite song off of here, boy, there's lots of them. I like Driven to Tears, Bombs Away. It's got several songs that you would recognize. There's the back cover. Excellent Police album. Now this next one, I included this in this new wave presentation, actually, because this album came out during that era, and it was played along with a lot of other new wave songs. But actually, the guy was a slightly older rocker. It is what's the name of it? Russ Ballard, Barnett Dogs. I listened to this the other day. This is a really good album. My favorite songs is Rennie Didn't Do It, On the Rebound. That did get some airplay. Now, Russ Ballard, he is or was a prolific songwriter. He wrote, for example, if you remember the song Liar by Three Dog Night, he wrote that. He wrote Santana, Winning. Was that off of Z-Bop, I think, around 1980, 81. Oh, and he sang the lead on Argent's, what was the name of the song? Hold Your Head Up High. It was Russ Ballard. So, very talented, and it sounds great. I am going to include the first two Clash albums because this was probably, well, this was the first Clash album released. It's probably one of my favorite Clash albums. They're all just very short, 2-minute, 2.5-minute punk songs, except for a couple. You just connect. If you like punk at all, this, in my opinion, this is the best punk album ever made, which I love the Clash. So, my favorite song is White Man in Hammersmith Palace. Every one of these is fantastic. And they do a cover version of I Fought the Law on here. Pick that up if you're into punk. Now the next one And that was released probably in, I don't know, 78 or so. Now this one is their second album. Um, Give 'em Enough Rope. This is also a very good. it's it's very punkish, although it's just slightly more polished than their first album. Um, Great songs on here. My favorite is "Stay Free." Um, yeah, for you into the Clash, there was a movie made in, I'm not sure when it was, sometime in the 80s, probably early 80s. It was kind of like a mixture documentary. Uh, I don't know what you call it, fact and fiction, but they used the Clash as the band, and it was called Rude Boy. I used to have it on VHS, but they had various live performances, and there was a storyline behind the whole thing. So very good. Next album, which I believe the first few of this artist was produced by Nick Lowe. I'm going to say that. This is this year's model, Elvis Costello. This was the first Elvis Costello album I ever got. Every one of these songs on here is fantastic. My favorite, boy, it'd be hard to choose one. There's so many really good ones. Pump It Up, This Year's Girl, No Action. Definitely, if you like Elvis, pick that up. Another Elvis. I'm not sure if this was right after that or not. Probably. This was released in 1980. Elvis Costello and the Attractions, Get Happy. There are like, I believe, 20 songs on this album. Very good. I prefer the one I just showed you to this one, but this has got fantastic songs on here, and you would probably, well, I know you'd recognize a few of them. Next artist, I loved this guy, and this was his first album, Joe Jackson, Look Sharp. Combination of whatever, punkish, new wave-ish, little reggae in there. Had the song Is She Really Going Out with Him. Every song on this album is very good. Four-piece band. Now the next album, also Joe Jackson, this would be his next album after Look Sharp, I'm the Man, which kind of continues the tradition of the first album. I always played Look Sharp probably 10 times as much as this one, although this one's really good too. There's the rear. Joe Jackson is a really good musician. Later he went on to a lot of different styles, jazz and everything. So this next album, 1980 on Sire Records. No New Wave collection is complete without a Madness album. Absolutely. Madness, if you've never heard them, pick an album up, and this one's a really good one. Very happy music. All these songs are really good on here. Baggy Trousers, Embarrassment, Close Escape. They are a very funny band. The next one, if you ever liked the early Elvis Costello, I would assume you would really like, this is Graham Parker and The Rumor. It's called the Up Escalator. Really good songs on here. His style was similar, very similar, voice-wise and instrumentally to Elvis, although he was not copying Elvis. That's just the way he did it. And they both came up at the same time. This was 1980. My favorite song is probably Stupefaction, or maybe No Holding Back. This is a really good new wave album. Next album, Garland Jeffries, Rock and Roll Adult. This is a very good album. It is live. You might have heard Wild in the Streets, maybe. I don't know. It's got an excellent version of 96 Tears on here. And this was released maybe 1981. I would definitely check out some of Garland Jeffries' music. The next album is Rockpile. This was 1980. Seconds of Pleasure. It does have Nick Lowe, Dave Edmunds, Bremer, Billy Bremner, and Terry Williams is the drummer. This is probably a classic new wave album. I would highly recommend. Got a nice gatefold in there. Pretty cool. And also, this is really neat. It came with because Dave Edmunds and Nick Lowe, they were just a little bit older than a lot of these new wave artists. Not a lot, but by a few years. And Dave Edmunds was always big into like rockabilly, Everly Brothers, as was Nick Lowe. And with this LP came this, it's a 45. Not sure what it says on there. Nick Lowe and Dave Edmunds sing the Everly Brothers. This is a 45 with 2 songs on the front, 2 songs on the back. Everly Brothers songs is just Nick Lowe and Dave Edmunds playing acoustic guitars and singing. Take a Message to Mary, Crying in the Rain, Poor Jenny, which is very funny, and When Will I Be Loved. This whole album is just very good. As far as the actual album, my favorite song, I like Now and Always, Heart. There's a lot of good songs on there. Highly recommend that. This one was 1983, which I didn't listen to it that much, but it's good. Nick Lowe, The Abominable Showman, not Snowman. We Want Action was a song that was played off of here. Very good. It's got there is a guy from Squeeze on here, Paul Carrack. Very good album. We're getting close to the end. This was released in, well, 1979-80. Split Ends. Called True Colors. Split Ends. I Got You. You might remember that. It had the Finn Brothers, who later went to Crowded House, Australian band. These are short, minimalist, new wave pop songs, short ones. Every song on here is just really good. Actually, this is the first album I think I ever got that was kind of laser etched. I don't know if you can see it on there. Different etchings on there. The back, the label is blank, but it's got all the information. On the front, fantastic album, New Wave. I would definitely recommend that. That's good, good pop. This next album, probably 1980. This is the soundtrack to a motion picture called Times Square. It is on the RSO label. The soundtrack, and I don't think I might have seen part of the movie, which I think the movie kind of wasn't that great. About two kind of like runaways or whatever, these girls, teenage, in Times Square, New York, of that period, which was a little seedy. So anyhow, the soundtrack to this double, and I don't think it was ever released on CD. I don't think so. It's only available on vinyl. Fantastic artists on here. It's got a song, Suzi Quatro, The Pretenders, Roxy Music, Gary Newman, The Ruts, Babylon's Burning, fantastic cover of You Can't Hurry Love by D.L. Byron, Walk on the Wild Side by Lou Reed. It's got a Talking Heads, Joe Jackson, XTC, Ramones, I Want to Be Sedated. It's got Innocent Not Guilty by Garland Jeffries, The Cure, Patti Smith Group, David Johansen, and actually one of the females, Robin Johnson. I'll show you the inside, kind of promoting the movie. Not sure if that's Robin there. Might be. But she actually recorded a couple tracks on here. And actually, the 2 or 3 tracks that she has on here, Damn Dog, Your Daughter Is One, and I think there's another one on here. But boy, they are great punk songs. Now, you could never play that on the radio because she uses bad language, but it's very good. I would highly, highly, highly recommend that if you happen to come across it. Now, the last album I have is, and this was probably 1980. Skafish. They were a group out of East Chicago, Indiana. Now, I picked this album up, a little story behind that. A friend of mine, Bobby D, he's a guitarist. I played in a band with him. His brother-in-law, Dave, also played in another band. So Dave decided to have a big party at his farm. There were a couple hundred people there. It was not a hog roast, it was a goat roast. Goats. They had goat burgers. And if you ask me what I thought of the goat burgers, not bad. But actually they were okay. So anyhow, there was a couple hundred people there. They had bands playing. You know, this was probably around 1981, somewhere around there. So you know what was going on back then. And the local radio station, there were a couple DJs from there, and they were handing out probably albums they never played. And this was one. Actually, this is a pretty good punk album. Jim Skafish was the leader. And I saw a interview on YouTube. It was a radio interview, but they also had video that was recorded a few years ago. And he seemed like a really good guy. I think he was probably abused and picked on when he was younger. Some of their shows were little gender benders, you know. And but the interview is really neat. He told some really interesting stories about being on the road and with these other bands, Sex Pistols, because they played with everybody back then. So I don't know if you'll ever run across this, but it's interesting and not bad. So anyhow, I think that is probably it for this morning on records from the late 70s and early 80s. This was brought to you, this episode, by Folgers Coffee. Nothing fancy, just good old Folgers. So anyhow, I will see you folks later. Have a good day. See ya.